Perfect. Right. Hi everyone, we are mere days away from the final event of the year, the World Tour Finals. Well, in fact, actually, by the time that this video comes out, the World Tour Finals will be starting tomorrow. Everyone's really excited. There's plenty of matches to go around that are going to really ignite the interest from the fans. I'm certainly interested by a lot of them. There's a lot of groups in this that, if I'm in all honesty, I don't think I could predict with any sort of accuracy. I think for some of them, especially the men's events, it would literally be picking out of a hat because it could easily go anyway. So yeah, I felt that seeing as we are this close to the World Tour Finals, it's such a big event, the year-ending event, and there's plenty to talk about, why not do a video previewing it all, and maybe even at the end giving some of those predictions that I said that were so hard to give anyway. But yeah, so I'm here, I've got the draws in front of me, and I'm just going to go through them and give you my honest, humble thoughts as I always try to do. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to start with the mixed doubles. Obviously, the big thing that stands out in this one from Group A is Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong sitting right at the bottom of the group. They are the Olympic champions. This will be their first time back since those Olympic Games. And on top of that is going to be quite a special event, as Zheng Siwei announced not too long ago that this will be his final tournament. He is going to be retiring, which is a sad thing. He's only 27, and a lot of people felt that at that age he could easily go for another Olympic cycle and could easily create even more history. But he's decided to put his family first, which we must all respect. Going back to the tournament itself, it's obviously going to be a big question mark as to whether Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong can go out on top and win yet another title. And even though they haven't played since the Olympics, I still feel that a lot of people think they're going to be the favourites. I have no doubt that they've been training really hard for this event. They're not going to turn up and pick up a check and just wave to their fans goodbye. They're going to want to go out on top, and I think they're going to be very difficult to beat. Obviously quite interesting that they've been put in the group with their compatriot Zhang Beiwen, and no, not Zhang Beiwen, Jiang and Wei, so obviously I'm quite excited to see those two pairs play. I know Yang and Wei have defeated Zheng and Wang. They actually defeated them in the final tournament at the Indonesia Open before the Olympics. So it's going to be interesting. But I think a lot of people see that Group A will be the two Chinese pairs that come through. And I kind of agree with that, although you can't overlook Tan Chun Man and Se Ying Sweat. They have absolutely massive amounts of experience. They are a great pair, and if they can bring out their A game, then they could easily trouble either of those pairs. And the Taipei pair of Yang and Hu are also good. They're someone that you can't just take lightly. So, although I feel like it's going to be quite clear-cut, I think the two Chinese pairs will come through. There's still plenty of question marks with can Tang and the other two pairs bring out their A game and maybe disrupt and defeat one of the Chinese pairs, and also the big question mark of what will be the level of Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong. Okay, so Group B, looking at Group B, it's very open if I'm honest with you. Obviously Kim Won-ho and Jun Ya-yun are withdrawn, and they've been replaced by Midorikawa and Saito. They're a pair that aren't just going to be there to make up the numbers. They're very capable. I think they're a very interesting and exciting pair. They actually beat Zhang and Wei at the beginning of the year, and they've also beaten the Malaysians Chen and To, who are in their group. So they're not just there to make up numbers. I think they have a good chance, if they play at a level that I know they're capable of actually qualifying through the group. Also, looking at kind of like, not head-to-heads per se, but looking at some of the matchups in that group, Go and Siobhan have never played Gloria and Dejun before, so that's going to be quite interesting to see. Gloria and Dejun have beaten Chen and To early this year, but that was their only ever meeting, so there's not much to go off. And obviously Go and Siobhan do have a narrow lead over Chen and To, but it's only narrow. I think they're only won one extra match, so. And then, like I said, the Japanese are very capable. So I think it's going to be who can perform best on the day in that one. But if I had to pick a favourite for this group, I think I'll go with Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jamie Lai. They've had probably the best recent run. They've had some early losses, especially their last tournament at the China Masters. But I believe that was because the week before they did so well in the Kumamoto Masters that they just weren't able to replicate it with all the travel. So with the fact this tournament is a standalone tournament and they're going to come in extra fresh, I think we're probably going to see them play at the level that we've kind of accustomed to them of late. So they've been really good, hitting their stride, and I think they also have quite a lot of experience as well. So I would have to say Go Sun Wat and Siobhan Jamie Lai are probably my favourites to come through that group. To pick someone else, it's difficult. So yeah, looking at predictions to get through the groups, because I can't predict the finals, because in the World Tour finals, once they're out the groups, then it's randomly done, so you don't know who's going to play who. So in Group A, I think it will be the two Chinese pairs, and in Group B, I'll go for Go and Lai. That's a difficult one. I think I'll go just for a little bit of variety. I'll go with the Indonesian pair of Gloria and Dejun. They're definitely a pair that, but yeah, like I said, that Group B, it could go anywhere, but I'll go with those two. So the next event I'm going to look at is the women's doubles. So what stands out right away from me, obviously Group A, both groups, like in all World Tour finals, you're not going to have a quote-unquote weaker group, or weak group actually, but Group A definitely stands out for me, because if you look at those top three pairs, they were all three pairs that were in the semi-finals of the Olympic Games. And three very established pairs, and three pairs that have done pretty well since those Olympics as well, especially the top two, Liu Shengshu, Tan Ning, and Pearly Tan and Tina Muralitharan. That's not to say Matsuyama and Shida haven't done well either. They're a fantastic pair, and I can't overlook the Indians, Jolly and Gopichand. They won their last tournament, the Syed Modi, so they're going to come in with quite a lot of, confidence. And they're also a pair that have done pretty well against some of the top pairs in the world. They defeated Lee So-hee and Baek Ha-na this year, and they've pushed a number of other pairs, so they're more than capable. I'm just a little bit unsure as to whether they can defeat three world-class, the top pairs in the world, back-to-back in the group stages, and also just looking at the kind of styles, I'm not so sure that the styles of the three pairs in the groups kind of favour them. When I've seen them defeat a number of the pairs, it's usually been more the steadier pairs, like the Koreans. So playing like the Malaysians and the Japanese, who play a much faster, quick style, I think might prove a little bit difficult for them. But they are capable of causing an upset, but whether they cause enough an upset to actually qualify, I'm not sure. They might play a role in who goes through, but I'm not sure whether they're going to be a pair that will actually go through themselves. I think it's quite obvious to say that one of the favourites to go through that group, the favourites, not just to go through the group actually, but to win, will be Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning. I know Pearly Tan and Tina have defeated them this year, but they've also lost them. So for me, I think it's going to be the Chinese pair will come through, and then it's going to be down to Matsuyama and Shida versus Pearly Tan and Tina in my eyes. And I think that's going to be a very interesting match. I think their styles are very similar, so it could be quite an exciting doubles. The only thing that makes it a little bit, maybe in some people's eyes, easier to predict who's going to win is that Matsuyama and Shida have a 10-1 head-to-head against Pearly and Tina. And also the Malaysians haven't defeated the Japanese since 2022. So if you look at all that, then the Japanese are the clear favourites. However, obviously they've got to play other matches, like I've already said, and Pearly and Tina probably have a better chance of defeating the Chinese. But also having said that, I think Pearly and Tina have played really good badminton since the Olympics, which was then actually those two pairs last played. And so I think if they were to face again, and it's not like I said that Matsuyama and Shida haven't played well since the Olympics, but Pearly and Tina definitely have been the better pair. So it's going to be an interesting match. I think that could actually be a match where Pearly and Tina might be able to turn around that luck and get that first win in 2 years. In fact, not just their first win, but their first game. So yeah, all the records, the head-to-heads, seem to look at the Japanese as the pair to go through. But Pearly and Tina, more than capable, and I think they're in a much better position, and I think that match for me is going to be the match of that group, and it's going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing their two styles match up against each other. Moving on to Group B, obviously most people's eyes are going to be on Chen Qinchen and Jai Fan, because just like Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong in the mixed, this will be their first time playing a tournament together since the Olympics. Jai Fan has played a number of tournaments with a number of different partners with mixed success, and I'm not quite sure how much training Chen Qinchen has done. I'm sure she's kept her eye in. I'm sure if they're going to turn up and play this tournament, that she's not, again, I don't think they will turn up on home soil and just make up the numbers. I think they're going to be there to win. It's an interesting group, actually, for me, Group B. Like I said, everyone's eyes are going to be on Chen and Jia and wondering what level they'll be. I think most people, not most people actually, I think obviously the Chinese fans would like to see it, but would like to see a final between the two Chinese pairs. Kind of the old guard versus the new guard, because most people do see Liu and Tan as a pair that can be just as dominant as Chen and Jia. But will Chen and Jia actually get through? It's not a guarantee. If you look at the top two pairs of Iwanaga and Nakanishi and Beckman and Lee So-hee, both those pairs can beat the Chinese pair. If I'm honest, I think Iwanaga and Nakanishi probably have a better chance. They're the pair that have given Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning one of their heaviest defeats since the Olympics at the Denmark Open, and with the fact that Chen and Jia are in some respects a little bit similar, maybe the style might work well for the Japanese. It's difficult to kind of really see who's going to come through that group. I know Beckman and Lee So-hee have been struggling as of late since the Olympics. I think they've only reached one final. And I haven't mentioned the Indonesian pair of Kusuma and Pratiwi. I don't think anyone really expects too much of them, as a number of their points in terms of qualifying for these World Tour finals did come from the Super 300 and Super 500 tournaments. But they have beaten Iwanaga and Nakanishi this year. So whilst I don't see them as a threat to qualifying, they could be a pair a little bit like Jolly and Pulela in Group A, that they might upset one of the other pairs in that group, which could ultimately decide who goes through. Who's going to go through? My predictions for the women's doubles group, I think I'm going to go with Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning in Group A. And I think joining them, I'm going to go with the Malaysians, Pearly Tan and Tina Muralitharan. Maybe I'm learning my lesson from the Olympics where I overlooked the Malaysians and then they went and did really well. Wouldn't it be funny if I back them now and then they don't do well? Then I would be a jinx for them. But I'm going to go with Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning and Pearly Tan and Tina Muralitharan. And in the Group B, I think I'm going to go with the experience of Chen and Jia. I think that could play quite a role. And I'm also going to go with experience in general, because I'll pick the Koreans of Beckman and Lee So-hee. I think I'll go with the experience in that, like Chen Qinchen, Jai Fan, and Beckman and Lee So-hee. Right, men's doubles next. Okay, so for me, the men's doubles, the men's doubles, and it will be the same for the men's singles later on. It's going to be probably the hardest ones to predict. The men's events throughout the whole year have been incredibly open, so it's going to be difficult to predict who comes through and who's got the best chances of winning. But anyway, I'm still going to give it a go, and I'm still going to obviously run through the groups. I'm honestly looking forward to every single match. I don't think there's a match that's potentially really going to be uninteresting, and I think every single match could play a vital role in who ultimately goes through. Starting with Group A, I think, again, like the other two events, there's a pair. The Olympic champions are making their return for the first time since those Olympic Games, and that's Li Yang and Wang Qilin. And also, like Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong, this will be their final tournament together, as Li Yang has already announced long ago that he is retiring, that this is the going to be his final tournament to play with Wang Qilin. Now, unlike what I said about Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong and Chen and Jai Fan in terms of Zheng and Chen, have they trained? And I said I think they will. Li Yang, I'm not so sure. I'm sure he's done a bit. I'm sure he hasn't just sat on his arse since the Olympics and done nothing. But if I had to say out of all of them, I think Li Yang probably has been someone, because he announced his retirement so long ago, maybe he's wound down and he's not really seeing this. He's seeing this more as a last time to have some fun with a partner that he's won 2 Olympic golds with. He might prove me wrong, but I'm not so sure about their level. Elsewhere in that group, it's quite an open group, to be honest. Obviously with the Danes, Astrup Rasmussen, you got the Malaysians, Go Sufei and Nurhazudin, and then you got Lian Yang, and the other Lian Yang from Chinese Taipei. Not the other Lian Yang, sorry, Lian Yang, because it's Lian Wang. It's... I think, based on recent form, you probably would have to go with the Danes and the Malaysians as the top pairs to go through. They've both done pretty well since the Olympics, whereas, obviously I've just spoken about Lian Wang, but Lian Yang, they had a really good start to the year, and everyone thought that maybe they'd have a chance to actually take Lian Wang's spot at the Olympics. Since then, they've done okay, but definitely not doing as well. I think it was their run early in the year has definitely helped them with the points to qualify. Having said that, though, they are a dangerous pair and can never be overlooked. And I must take a moment to congratulate Yang Po Swan, who is the only player to qualify in 2 events at these World Tour finals, so congratulations to him. Moving towards Group B, I am quite interested to see how He Jiting and Ren Xiangyu handle the situation, as it's only the men's doubles where China have only got 1 representative playing, as Wang Chang and Liang Weikang, their top-ranked men's doubles pair, didn't qualify, as they had a terrible China Masters, where they lost to Gautama and Isfahani, who then went on to get their qualifying spot, and they're actually in Group B. So for me, it's going to be quite interesting, because although there's plenty of other Chinese athletes at these World Tour finals, obviously being in China and wanting to do well and being on their own is going to be quite interesting to see how they handle that. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm also very interested to see how Gautama and Isfahani play. They've had a fantastic year. I said in my last Beckman's breakdown that, you know, they started the year in a position where they couldn't even qualify for a Super 750. They wouldn't get into the draw. And now here they are at the World Tour Finals, the top 8 pairs in the world through the World Tour. So that just shows how great a year they've had. And it'll be interesting to see if they can... Obviously, they got to the final in their last tournament in China, the China Masters, the last qualifying event for these World Tour Finals. So they're in great recent form. So their confidence will be high. So it's going to be interesting to see how they perform. For me, talking about them leads into, I think, a big deciding factor for this men's doubles event, and that's going to be what the conditions are like. I think if they're windy and fast, a bit like the China Masters were, then it's going to help. It's going to aid a pair like Gautama and Isfahani, who are so good in the first 4. And I think it will also help the other Indonesian pair of Alfian and Ardianto. It also might help someone like Li Yang and Wang Qilin, who are quite a tricky pair, and might be able to do a little bit what I saw of Ranki Reddy and Shetty, where with the conditions being difficult for pairs to settle in, it kind of evens out any sort of lack of match play. But on the flip side, if it's kind of slower or the conditions aren't so windy, it's quite neutral, or it's cold and the shuttles are slow, then it might go against someone like the Indonesians. It might play more into the hands of Astrup and Rasmussen, or the Malaysian pairs, who have very strong defences. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the conditions are. I know that it's very cold in the hall. I think I saw a story from Siobhan Jamilai that it was like 5 degrees in the hall at practice time at like 8 in the morning. I know it will get warmer with the TV lights on, the crowd in, and they might do something to heat it up, but the fact that it might be a little colder in there might slow the conditions down a little bit. So yeah, I think it's going to come down to the conditions, which could be quite decisive in terms of not just who gets through, but who wins the whole competition. So yeah, okay, so honestly, like I said to you at the start, it's very hard to predict who's going to come through, but let's go for it. I think with Group A, I'm going to go with the top 2. Like I said, I think they are the 2 pairs that have been in slightly better form recently, and that's Kim Astrup and Anders Rasmussen, and Go Sufei and Nurhazudin. Group B, it's very tricky. I did have a little look at the head-to-heads, and I might put them on the screen. They're just just literally written down. It's in no nice little graphic like I've got on the screen now. But between Alfin Ardianto and Aaron Chan-So-Yik, it's 4-all. Alfin Ardianto versus He and Ren, it's 1-0 to the Chinese. It's 1-0 to Alfin Ardianto against their compatriots Gautama and Isfahani, but that was from 2022. Aaron Chan-So-Yik has never played Gautama and Isfahani. Gautama and Isfahani beat the Chinese, obviously, in the China Masters recently, and that's the only time they've played. And then He Jiting and Reng Shengyu have a 2-1 against the Malaysians of Aaron Chan-So-Yik, with the last one being at the China Masters as well. So if you look at that, again, it makes it even harder. So I think, for me, I have gone with... Okay. I'm going to cut this time down because it'll probably take a little while. Because I just know if I get it wrong, it's going to come back to haunt me. Oh well, who cares? I'm going to go with a pair with some experience. I'm going to go with experience again. I think that might always play a little bit of a role. So I'll go with Alfin and Ardianto. I think they've always done quite well when it comes to the big events. And I think I'll go with the Malaysians, actually. Aaron Chan-So-Yik. Yeah, that's a tricky one. But anyway, yeah, I'll go with those two. Let's just see how it goes. Like I said, very excited to watch all the matches in these men's doubles, and it's incredibly hard to predict. So yeah, let's just go with that. Women's singles. Okay. Women's singles. So, I get to finally be correct about Ayo Hori. I'm going to start with that because she's in Group A, and that is that this is definitely her last tournament. I said that Kumamoto Masters was, but I think I got that mixed up because that's her last tournament on home soil. Then she played China Masters, and I said that was her last tournament, but then she qualified for these World Tour finals. So yes, these World Tour finals will be Ayo Hori's final tournament. Can she do really well at it? She is definitely more than capable, 100%. Obviously, I think the favourite will be... Oh, actually, I wouldn't even say that's the favourite, because you've got Tundrung in there, you've got Wang Ziyi, and you've got Busanan. Busanan's obviously the player that's kind of seen as she might struggle to get through the group, but we all know she is. Again, like with a lot of the other events, she's a player in there that if she comes in and plays at her best, then she could definitely upset a few of the other players in that group. But I do see that group as a kind of a split. So you've got, I do think that the favourites are Wang Ziyi and Gregoria Mariska Tunjung, and then obviously the other two, Ayo Hori and Busanan. So I do think that Wang Ziyi and Gregoria are the two that will come through that group. But that's not to say that an upset can't happen. It is interesting, actually, before I get into Group B, but it's just kind of talking about Group B as well, is I think this is quite a good test for the Chinese players, Han Yue and Wang Ziyi. Because whilst Chen Yufei, the Olympic champion and Chinese number one, well, I don't think she's number one now. I think Wang Ziyi actually has gone up above her in the rankings, but everyone sees Chen Yufei still as the number one. You know, I think this is kind of, these two are seen as the two that are going to carry the mantle through the next Olympic cycle. And whilst Chen Yufei has been away since the Olympic Games and there's been a few big tournaments, this is really the first massive tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see how the two Chinese players, it's interesting to me how these Chinese players handle this, because if they're not careful, they could easily fall in the group stages. I think that especially if Han Yue, I mean, in her group, obviously she's got, you know, An Se-young, the world and Olympic champion, and probably favourite for the whole tournament. And then at the bottom of her group, you've got Akane Yamaguchi, who's only 8th seed because she just about qualified. But she's a former 2-time world champion, world number one, and definitely someone that Han Yue is not guaranteed to win, even though Han Yue is the number 2 seed. So yeah, a lot of pressure on the top two Chinese. They are the 1 and 2 seeds. But I don't think people see them as 1 and 2 seeds. I think people would probably look elsewhere. But yeah, no, so this is kind of going to be their first test of can they handle the pressure and can they deliver? Can they keep that tradition alive of Chinese players? I know in the women's singles, China have always had strong players over the last decade or so, but they definitely haven't been the most dominant nation. You know, the women's singles has been an incredibly open one, but still, there's still a little bit of tradition. I still think they're going to the Chinese coaches and fans are looking at these two to lead the charge. So this is going to be their first real test. It's on home soil. It's a massive event. They're the top 2 seeds. So how will they perform? It'll be very interesting. I think Wang Ziyi has proved herself a little bit more than Han Yue. I think Han Yue is the one that, looking at her group as well, she's definitely not, in my eyes, someone that I think favourite to come through her group. Obviously, I've already mentioned An Si-young and Yamaguchi, but you cannot overlook Katathong as well. Supanida Katathong of Thailand. She's a very interesting and exciting player to watch, and very capable. You know, it goes for everyone. You know, you don't make it to World Tour finals if you're not capable. I have to say, now I moved on to Group B, that obviously the match that I'm excited for the most, and I think one that a lot of people are, is An Si-young versus Yamaguchi. These two over the last few years have had some absolutely amazing battles. I think in 2022 it's pretty much those two playing finals week in, week out. Yamaguchi has struggled with an injury, although she's only really played well in Japan this year. She's in general been struggling, but I think having watched her, she is, I think, playing injury-free. I think she just needs to get her level back. An Si-young is obviously, you know, she won in China, and what was quite nice about that, she looked happier. She had less taping on her knee. She looked to have a slightly better relationship with her coaches. So she's definitely the one that I think people are expecting her to finish the year strong and win. But I'm really excited to watch her versus Yamaguchi. Those two have had some absolute epic matches in the past. I'm not sure whether either of them are going to be at absolutely 100%, especially in the group stages. But I'm still excited to watch it. I love watching them both play. They're two of my favourite players, not just in women's singles, but in all of badminton. So yeah, no, I'm personally excited for that. And I think that might decide who actually tops the group. Not that it actually has much of an influence over the semi-finals, but it's going to be between those two. So yeah, no, it's an interesting women's singles. Predictions-wise, I'll go with what I've already said. I think Wang Ziyi and Tung Jung, the two favourites from the top group, are going to come through. And in the bottom group, I'm going to go An Si-young and Yamaguchi. I think, in all honesty, they're probably the easiest discipline I've had to pick. And not to say that they can't be upset by other players in there, but I think they're the most obvious picks out of those ones if you had to look at it. If I had to pick someone that's a little bit susceptible out of those four picks, I probably would actually say Yamaguchi. If she's at her best, then it's no, I think she will come through, but having watched her over the last few months, over this year, she's been a bit up and down, so she could easily be someone that might actually lose to other players in her group. So yeah, no, but I'll go with that. Tung Jung and Wang, An Si-young and Yamaguchi. Right, okay, and the last discipline, the men's singles. So like I said, like the men's doubles, let me just have a quick sip of coffee. Oh yeah, that's good. So yeah, like I said, like the men's doubles, this one is incredibly difficult to predict. But it is a lovely mix of players. You know, all different nations, plenty of different nations throughout the whole event, but all different nations. There's no same nation matches in the group stages. But I think, before I get into the players that qualified, firstly, I have to talk about the one player that withdrew, and that was Victor Axelsen. Obviously, he withdrew citing a foot injury, I believe. It was an injury. I believe it was to his foot. It might have been just something to his lower leg. The reason I bring it up is not that because now the Olympic champion is not going to be there, or the player that's won the last 3 editions of the World Tour Finals. So he's not there to make it 4 times in a row, which would be absolutely insane if he had done that. But it's more the story around it. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I do need to touch on it. And that was, if you don't know, a little while ago, Zhang Beiwen posted something on Instagram and I think on her other socials talking about how difficult she's found it with the World Tour. You know, she's an independent player she's representing a country where there's not as much support, and she's been having all this difficulty, feeling very lonely. And she's now made it into what they call the committed players. I think it's the top 10 for the singles, which means she basically has to play a certain number of tournaments or she gets fined $5,000 per tournament. And obviously she's been trying to get some time off, maybe a protected ranking, basically citing mental health issues, which no one should be able to take lightly. However, the BWF, for whatever reason, said that it doesn't qualify her for that, and that if she misses any of the events that she must go to, then she has to pay the $5,000 fine. So it kicked up a little bit of a hoo-ha online. I certainly aired my own opinions on Instagram. I'm sure people have their own thoughts. I think that players should have a little bit more say in the events they play. I don't think we need to have these kind of tournaments that they have to play at, these top players. I think the top tournaments in the world, top players are going to want to play, because not only does it give them the most ranking points, but the most prize money. I know we can go, there are ways to maybe improve those sort of things, but I don't think we need to be forcing players. I do understand the BWF need to kind of guarantee participation, and it's going to help them promote and to obviously sell tickets and to make back some investment, obviously, that goes into a lot of these tournaments, but I think there needs to be a little bit of compromise, and I do think removing or even just reducing the number of tournaments that they have to play would be a start. But anyway, back to Victor. He withdrew, and then literally he posted something on, literally saying a couple hours later he got the email from the BWF basically saying, okay, we're really sorry to hear this, but if he approves, gets a doctor's note basically that to say that this is a true injury, then obviously he can forego that $5,000 fine. Victor made a point that this literally happened mere hours after he had withdrawn, and then he showed his reply, which was basically saying that Victor has withdrawn from a few tournaments in the past, and every time that he's always given the correct medical notes, you know, an official doctor stating this and this, but he always gets the fine anyway. And so he basically ended it with a bit of a, you know, a fuck you, going, well, just give me the fine anyway and I'll pay it. He didn't see the point in actually bothering to reply, because it never goes anywhere anyway. And I think that's, for me, the main issue. I don't think there's an issue with BWF sending him that email so many only a few hours later, because they have to. For me, the main issue is that Victor, who, as we all know, is very professional and has an incredible team around him, and is not going to be someone who just kind of like forges a note from some dodgy doctor to get himself out of a tournament. It's going to be for real reasons. So the fact that BWF, no matter what anyone like that seems to do, still puts the fine out there, for me, that's a real that's not a good look. That for me is the main issue. So yeah, I had to touch on that. I might go into it more in the next tournament, in the next Beckman's breakdown, or I might just do a video on it in general, on its own subject, because it's something that probably does need to be looked into and discussed. But yeah, that's a little bit of the story if you weren't aware about why Victor was not there and some of the hoo-ha and the controversy around it. But anyway, less of that. Let's get back to this. Although this video is going to go on longer than I wanted it to. I think looking at Group A, for me, I know a number of people are quite interested to see Anna's versus Li Shifeng, because last time they played in Denmark, there was a little bit of a hoo-ha, and they've had a few run-ins in the past, so it'd be interesting to see if that happens again. Could be quite interesting if that does, especially as it will be in China, and the Chinese crowd might not take too well to that. If Anna's, or whatever, I think a lot of people are just quite interested. They do have some great matches. I remember their match from the All England in 2020 last year, and that was a absolute amazing match. So I hope they have a decent match like that, and I hope there's less of these what I call childish antics. I know it makes for great social media posts and interesting things to talk about, but I don't personally like to see it. Elsewhere in Group A, Li Zijia. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays. We know he's a bit of an up and down player. If he pulls out his, again, like I've said this about a few other players, if he pulls out his A game, then he's definitely someone that can get through that group. Be quite nice to see him do well. I do quite like watching Li Zijia play, and I know that it must be quite difficult for him. He gets a lot of shit online from all sorts of angles, which is never nice. Sometimes I must say that he might bring it on himself a little bit, but that's just the way he is and the way he behaves. Just the way he looks. That's him. And I don't think it should be overly criticised at times. I think sometimes it gets taken the wrong way. But the reason why I want to see him do well is that obviously it's going to be his last tournament with his coach, Wang Tatmeng, who announced recently that they'll be parting ways. I don't know who Li Zijia's new coach is going to be, but it'll be great to see, because I think Wang's done a great thing with Li Zijia. He's given him his confidence back. He's helped him get back on the podium, obviously the Olympic bronze. So it'd be good to see him do well again in the final tournament. So again, there's a running theme through this. There's a few swan songs and a few finals here, a few final tournaments, and this is another one of them. And then rounding out that group, Cho Chien Chen. I think, like always, he's always overlooked. He's just that player. I don't know. He's fantastic, and he can always do really well. And he tends to do quite well at these bigger tournaments. But no one ever goes into a tournament going, Cho Chin Chen's going to win. I don't know why. I'm guilty of that. I've always overlooked him in the past. He's definitely capable of getting through this group. I'll come back to in a second. But yeah, no, some interesting matches there. And looking at the head-to-heads of them, again, it also is quite interesting because, you know, Cho's got a head-to-head 7-4 against Anna's, but the last 3 meetings, Anna's won. You know, Anderson versus Li Zijia. Anderson has the head-to-head record of 5-4, but Li Zijia won the last 2. Anderson won the last 2 against Li Shifeng, and they're 2-all. Li Zijia and Li Shifeng haven't played this year, but they've got a 3-2 head-to-head, so it's very close. And Li Zijia and Cho is 5-all, but Li Zijia has won the last 3. So, again, it's hard to really go off much from the head-to-heads, if I'm honest. But yeah, no, interesting group. So yeah, no, looking to Group B, again, another tough group to see. Obviously, we're going to get to see a Kodai Kunlevut match. You know, actually, I like those matches. I know everyone's with me on that, but that'll be interesting. They should probably start that today. It might just about finish in time. But you know, that's going to be quite interesting. Talking of Kunlevut, I backed him quite a lot in the Olympics, and I did turn out to be right because he did get to the final and he was playing brilliantly. I'm not so sure about the World Tour Finals. Obviously, he's more than capable, and it is a big tournament, and I think he's a big tournament player. But I think I saw somewhere that he said that he's just going to take it match by match, point by point, but that he said, look out for me what I'm going to wear at the gala. So I'm not quite sure where his head's at. He might be more interested in looking the part at the gala than actually the badminton. That's a joke, by the way. But yeah, no, I'm not so sure about the level that he's going to bring. Kodai Naraoka, I'm excited to see him play because he's definitely been someone that I think he's trying to change his style, so it'll be quite interesting to see how he approaches the matches in this group. I think he's going to have to use that attacking style if he wants to not only get through the group, but get through it with energy for the semi-finals. Christie and Shiyu Chi, I'll start with Christie. You know, he's been having a pretty good run of late. You know, again, he's been a bit up and down, but when he's playing well, for me, for Christie, what's going to be really interesting is in his matches against Naraoka and Vititson. He has a pretty good game plan against Shiyu Chi. I think that's shown in the head-to-heads. I think he is 8. He's 9-6 up against Shiyu Chi. So I think he knows how to play him. And I think the way Shiyu Chi plays, it brings out Christie's better game, which is the more attacking, faster pace, using the flat game. But Kunlevut and Kodai are 2 players that are quite good at kind of countering that and making it a slower game. So I'd like to see if Christie going to get drawn into that. You know, if I look at the head-to-heads between Christie and Kunlevut and Christie and Kodai, Kodai does actually have a better head-to-head against Christie, but Christie won this year, and against Kunlevut, Christie's won the last 3 times. So he obviously has a game plan to defeat those players as well, and based on head-to-heads, he should go through the group. But I'm just a little bit concerned whether he gets drawn into some long, drawn-out matches, which I think is where Christie can kind of lose his way. But yeah, no, and finishing out the group, Shiyu Chi, obviously he'd had a lot of struggles from the Olympic Games, but then at China Masters he showed a much more inspired and motivated version of himself. He looked like his injuries were cleared up. He definitely wasn't match fit, but he would have taken great confidence from that China Masters result, and I think he's going to come into this tournament and be quite difficult to beat. I think with a little bit more training, which he had done since the China Masters, I watched him at a China Badminton League match, and he looked pretty strong there as well. So I think he's definitely on the right path. So he's going to be in a good position to finish the year strong and prove to everyone why he is the world number 1. Whew, that's a lot there. But prediction-wise, oh my lord. Okay, I'm going to go with from Group A, Anders Antonsen. He's won the last 2 tournaments he's played. He's on a really good run. He's confident. I think he has a good head-to-head against Cho and Li Shifeng, having won the last 3 matches against Cho and the last 2 against Li Shifeng. I think Li Zijia is a difficult match for him, but I think if he can win those other two matches, he'll probably come through. The other one, oh my lord. I'm going to go with Cho Chen. I'm going to back the guy that rarely ever gets backed. I say that because I haven't really got a justification for it, if I'm honest. I'm just going to back Cho Chen, just because I want to back him. And then from Group B, I'm going to go with Xiuqi and Christie. I don't know why I say that, but again, it's just a little bit of a gut feeling. Not quite sure that Kunlevut is going to come in as good a shape as possible. And I think Kodai struggles against someone like Xiuqi. I think he might also struggle. Yeah, I don't quite know how to explain why I'm saying that, but I just think Xiuqi, with the way he played in China Masters, maybe he might come stuck. Maybe a little bit of lack of fitness might play a role, having to play 3 matches like that in the group stages. But yeah, I'll go with Xiuqi and Christie for this one. But yeah, it's very difficult, honestly. You could pick anyone, like I said right at the start. But anyway, I'll go with those picks. Okay, everyone. So there you have it. My little preview of the World Tour Finals and some predictions. Although, as you can tell, I didn't seem too confident with a lot of those predictions. I think it's just very difficult to predict, especially the men's events. Very open. And I always find when it comes to group stages, so many things can happen, so many factors, and also I don't know what the conditions are going to be like inside the hall. I know that you can say that about every tournament, but usually when you look at a knockout draw, you can kind of see how a tournament might pan out. With a knockout stage, it's very difficult. There's obviously a lot of question marks as well over players' form, because we've got 3 pairs that haven't played since the Olympic Games. And just plenty of other factors, so it is difficult to predict. But what I'm quite confident of is that it's going to be a great event. I think there's going to be plenty of exciting matches, plenty of interesting matches, and I think there's going to be plenty of really good matches as well. Those are my picks those are the ones I've gone with in terms of who I think is going to come through. I'd love to hear your own thoughts about also any other matches that you were excited to see in the group stages, or any sort of anything else that you want to add. As always, add it in the comments. Like I always say, I am just one person, and I'm just offering my humble opinion on these things. I'm by no means a clairvoyant. I'm by no means an expert. I don't think I have the right to call myself that. I'm just a badminton fan who played badminton to a pretty good level, and I watch a lot of it, and I'm passionate about it, and I love talking about it with you guys. And talking about that, I can't wait to watch this World Tour Finals and get to talk about it all with you again next week in my Beckman's breakdown on the World Tour Finals. So yeah, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.